Welcome back, guys. A big roaring hello to you from the King of the Monsters. Since its first inception in 1954 as an allegory for the dangers of nuclear weapons, Godzilla has spawned into several incarnations over the years, with some being related to the 1954 one and others getting brand new origin stories altogether. It eventually resulted in a big family of Godzilla members. Along the way, Godzilla even adopted a son or two, training them to step into his monstrous shoes. Godzilla's mysterious family history sometimes dates back to the Cretaceous era and sometimes to the Permian era. While some incarnations link the kaiju to have grown from nuclear waste by mutating its own DNA, others describe it as an extra-dimensional creature or a monster evolved from plant organisms, giving Godzilla different lineages. So hang tight as we begin this time-traveling trip into Godzilla's history. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Main lineage, original Godzilla. It all began with the 1954 Godzilla. Let's rewind to the year when Godzilla emerged from his subaqueous lair and unleashed his full fury on Japan. Before he was dubbed as Gojira, this prehistoric amphibian reptile from the Jurassic period, related to terrestrial dinosaurs and aquatic reptiles, was resting peacefully deep beneath the ocean depths, feeding on underwater organisms and going through some sort of evolution when, boom, he was shaken and stirred by the atomic bomb testing in the Pacific Ocean. Surviving the thermonuclear blasts and absorbing severe amounts of radiation resulted in the exponential mutation of the creature and the creation of a gigantic, 50-meter tall to be precise, kaiju, who first made an appearance on Odo Island in the outskirts of Japan. Paleontologist Dr. Kyohei Yamane decided to call this creature Godzilla, inspired by the legendary beast Gojira of Odo Island. It is also theorized that Godzilla lived with many of his kind in his underwater cavern, and that the nuclear testing destroyed his habitat, killing everyone else, with him being the only remaining member of his species. Scorched and mutated as a result of humans' obsession with nuclear power, Godzilla stomped through Tokyo, laying waste to the city, representing what nuclear weapons are capable of creating. While this Godzilla dies at the end of the 1954 movie by the oxygen destroyer, he is referenced frequently throughout other films of the franchise in the years that followed. Other Godzilla incarnations also have connections to the 1954 one. For example, the bio-robot Kiryu from Godzilla against Mechagodzilla was constructed by the Japan Self-Defense Forces from the OG Godzilla's bones. For a Heisei-era movie, Toho considered bringing back the angry soul of the 1954 Godzilla in a Ghost Godzilla incarnation, but that idea was scrapped. Final Wars Godzilla. The 1954 Godzilla made a comeback in 2004's Godzilla Final Wars. How? By changing his fate from the 1954 film. The Final Wars Godzilla is the same kaiju who was awakened by nuclear activity in 1954, and instead of dying, continued to destroy Japan with all his might thanks to his atomic breath. P.S. By this time, Earth was also plagued by other monsters, so Japan had to create the Earth Defense Force to tackle the Godzilla menace, and the team painfully managed to lure the beast to Antarctica. There, Godzilla faced the EDF's advanced war machine, the Gotengo, and fell through a crack in the ice while attacking it. The Gotengo then blasted nearby icy structures, sealing off the crack and trapping Godzilla in an icy cavern. Area G was constructed to keep an eye on the imprisoned Godzilla till the 21st century. In the year 20XX, the evil extraterrestrial people, the Exilians, took control of Earth's monsters and instructed them to destroy humanity. This prompted the residual members of the EDF to release Godzilla from his icy entrapment, setting him loose on the mind-controlled kaiju, the most intimidating of them being the three-headed alien dragon, Monster X. After the showdown, Godzilla turned on the humans who released him, but his adoptive son Minilla succeeded at changing his mind. The two returned to their underwater lair in the ocean. Final Wars Godzilla had doubled in height from 1954 and could shoot several forms of atomic blasts, powerful enough to destroy an asteroid. Minilla. This brings us to Minilla, the infant kaiju of Godzilla's species, who first appeared in Toho's 1967 movie Son of Godzilla. When the destructive Kamacuras dug up the egg weighing a whopping 2,000 metric tons containing Minilla on Solgel Island, the unborn kaiju sent out brainwaves like radio frequencies, which were detected by Godzilla, and he arrived to save the little one. The Kamacuras forced the baby Godzilla to hatch untimely, but Godzilla Sr. took him under his wing, training him to be a worthy kaiju. This clumsy goofball was a smaller and chubby version of Godzilla, who was friendly with humans and exhibited typically childlike behavior by kicking boulders or jumping over Godzilla's tail. However, he showed great courage by firing his atomic breath at the colossal spider kaiju Kumanga. The 1998 book, The Official Godzilla Compendium, as well as Toho's official website, confirm that Godzilla adopted Minilla during the events of the 1967 film. In 1968's Destroy All Monsters, Minilla was living with Dad Godzilla on the Monsterland Island, monitored by humans at the end of the 20th century. When the alien Kelox invaded the Earth and took control of the monsters, Minilla joined his dad and other Earth monsters in fighting King Ghidorah. In 1969's All Monsters Attack, Minilla existed in the imaginary world of the little kid Ichiro Miki and was actually a projection of Ichiro's own self. Ichiro, who was bullied in real life by a boy named Gabara, imagined that Minilla too was haunted by a monster named Gabara. Together, they set up a trap to defeat Gabara in the imaginary world, thus appearing to overcome Ichiro's own fear of bullies. In 2004's Godzilla Final Wars, Minilla appeared towards the end and convinced his father to end his enmity with humans. Baby Godzilla, Godzilla Jr. Toho wanted to bring back Minilla in the Heisei-era films, but director Takao Okawara came up with another Godzilla offspring instead. Called Baby Godzilla, this creature hatched from the egg of a Godzillasaurus, the species of dinosaur that first appeared in the 1991 movie Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. In 1993's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, the egg was found on Adanoa Island in a pteranodon nest and was watched over by the pteranodon kaiju Rodan. When humans brought the egg to Japan, it hatched in a lab in Kyoto. The G-Force used Baby Godzilla to lure Godzilla into a battle with Mechagodzilla, with the latter emerging victorious. After Godzilla was revived by Rodan's life essence, he defeated the Mecha Kaiju and walked back into the ocean with his newly adopted son. In 1994's Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, Baby Godzilla grew up to become Little Godzilla, who could blow out tiny radioactive bubbles by the end of the film. Little Godzilla became the target of the alien monster and was imprisoned in a crystal cage, but was eventually freed by his father. In 1995's Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, he was an adolescent called Godzilla Jr., who managed to defeat Destoroyah in round 1, but was killed by the crustacean kaiju in round 2. After an overheated Godzilla defeated Destoroyah and melted down, Godzilla Jr. was revived by the radiation. He mutated into a fully grown Godzilla to take on the mantle previously held by his dad. GMK Godzilla. Millennium Godzilla from 2001's Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, is sometimes believed to be a reincarnation of the 1954 Godzilla, but that doesn't appear to be the case. The film's characters clearly refer to the 1954 Godzilla and the GMK Godzilla as separate entities, mentioning that the first one was killed by the oxygen destroyer. Moreover, the 2012 book Toho Special Effects Movie Complete Works, which profiles Toho Kaiju, refers to the 1954 one as the first generation Godzilla and the GMK Godzilla as the second generation, who is also larger in size. The GMK Godzilla got a supernatural twist, as it was the embodiment of the restless souls of those who died in the Pacific Theater during World War II. This Godzilla, embedded with vengeful spirits, emerged to punish people for forgetting the atrocities that occurred during World War II. To make it look otherworldly, the GMK Godzilla had pupilless eyes, with its biggest asset being its regenerative powers. The GMK Godzilla was so vindictive that Prophet Hirotoshi Isayama had to awaken the ancient guardian monsters of the world, King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Baragon, to tackle the supernatural menace. GMK Godzilla could only be finished off when the spirits of the guardian monsters dragged it underwater and the underwater submarine it had swallowed fired from inside its body. After its reign of terror, the GMK Godzilla was reduced to to just a throbbing heart at the bottom of the ocean. Mutated by H-bomb, Heisei Godzilla. The Heisei-era Godzilla got assigned a completely new origin story. It was originally a Godzillasaurus, which was mutated into an amphibian kaiju by exposure to nuclear radiation. In Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, it is theorized that the Castle Bravo nuclear bomb testing at Bikini Atoll in 1954 was responsible for transforming the dinosaur on Lagos Island into an 80-meter-tall, living, breathing nuclear weapon, Godzilla. Meanwhile, a group of time travelers from the year 2204 arrived in the past to remove the Godzillasaurus from Lagos Island ahead of the hydrogen bomb testing in 1954, so that no Godzilla would be created in the future. But that really didn't make a difference, because as the Godzillasaurus was moved to the Bering Sea, a Soviet nuclear submarine detonated nearby and transformed Godzillasaurus into Godzilla, just years after which it was featured in its first Heisei-era movie, 1984's The Return of Godzilla. In the final film of the Heisei era, Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, overexposure to uranium on Boss Island converted Godzilla into a burning form, who eventually melted down, resurrecting Godzilla Jr. The Heisei era Godzilla's atomic breath got multiple upgrades, with its regenerative abilities playing a key role in the Heisei era film's storyline. His G-cells were used to create the anti-nuclear energy bacteria, an anti-Godzilla weapon. A rogue scientist also spliced the G-cells with a rose, resulting in a kitschy villain kaiju, Biollante. Godzillasaurus, the Heisei-era Godzilla's predecessor. The Godzillasaurus is believed to have existed since the Cretaceous period, engaging in battles against the Pteranodon species. Godzillasaurus was created by Toho to give an interesting origin story to the Heisei-era Godzilla. The 12-meter-tall theropod dinosaur Godzillasaurus first appeared on Lagos Island when the American and Japanese garrisons battled each other during the Pacific War. Godzillasaurus managed to save its territory and the Japanese army, who paid their respects to the injured dinosaur before departing the island. This Godzillasaurus was attempted to be removed from history by the time-traveling Futurians, who transported the injured dinosaur to the bottom of the Bering Sea, hoping it would die there eventually. But as we know, a nuclear submarine crash revived the injured Godzillasaurus and transformed it into Godzilla. In Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, a Godzillasaurus egg found in the Pteranodon nest was believed to be parasitic, as it was left to be cared for by another species. When it hatched in Kyoto, out came baby Godzilla. Interestingly, the Godzillasaurus species appeared to be telepathic, as baby Godzilla could psychically communicate with Rodan and Godzilla. It also possessed an interesting trait, a secondary brain located where its tail meets its torso, which controls the motor functions of its lower body. In 1993, the Mechagodzilla used this knowledge to its advantage and pierced Godzilla's second brain, electrifying and paralyzing it. Evolved lineages. Millennium Godzilla. The first Godzilla of the Millennium era of Godzilla films, seen in Godzilla 2000 Millennium, was never assigned a distinct origin story. He emerged sometime after the OG Godzilla's death in 1954 and remained Japan's adversary ever since. A notable trait of this Godzilla was that it contained the element named Organizer G1 in his cells, which gave him the ability to undergo enhanced regenerative healing, making him practically immortal. The scientist Yugi Shinoda predicted that Millennium Godzilla's cells would revolutionize modern medicine and hold the secret to immortality. The second film of the series brought back the 1954 Godzilla by altering the ending of the first ever Godzilla movie. In this interpretation, Godzilla retreated into the ocean instead of dying by the oxygen destroyer, only to emerge years later to feed on a nuclear power plant and then hibernate again before returning to battle the Megaguirus. While the GMK Godzilla and Final Wars Godzilla from the Millennium era got intriguing origin stories of their own, two other films shared the same Godzilla continuity in the Millennium era: Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Godzilla Tokyo SOS. Godzilla, emerging from the stormy seas to attack Tokyo, was the antagonist in both films. And both times, Godzilla is defeated by Kiryu, a bio-robot made from the bones of the 1954 Godzilla. Kiryu carried the last Millennium-era Godzilla Godzilla into the ocean, with both of them sinking to the bottom, thus restoring the natural order by returning the 1954 Godzilla's bones to where they belong. Showa Godzilla. The Showa era continued with 1955's Godzilla Raids Again, in which a second Godzilla appeared. This Godzilla is shown as another one of the OG Godzilla's species, part reptilian and part amphibian in nature. In its first appearance on Iwado Island, Godzilla was engaged in a battle with the kaiju Anguirus, with the two of them tumbling over a cliff deep into the ocean. It was believed that Godzilla was attracted by lights as they reminded him of the nuclear detonation, and a plan to save the mainland was devised. A blackout was enforced in the cities while Godzilla was drawn away from Japan through flares. This Godzilla was buried in ice by the JSDF until a nuclear submarine broke down an iceberg, freeing Godzilla, who then went on to fight King Kong in the 1962 movie. The final showdown was an underwater battle, away from the humans, with Kong emerging as the winner while Godzilla retreated to his lair. In 1964, it took a lot of convincing from Mothra for Godzilla to help humanity and join the battle against Ghidorah, thus transforming the Showa-era Godzilla from being the antagonist and destroyer to the protector of humanity, with Godzilla eventually achieving the status of a superhero monster. Interestingly, the 1971 incarnation of the Showa-era Godzilla could fly by projecting his atomic breath onto the ground. He was given this ability so that he could chase down Ghidorah's flying form, but thankfully, Godzilla's bizarre power of flight remained restricted to just one movie. The Showa-era Godzilla maintained his reputation as the protective kaiju till the last film of the series, 1975's Terror of Mechagodzilla. Separate lineages. Godzilla Earth. Godzilla Earth is the second Godzilla incarnation of the Reiwa era, and the first one in the anime trilogy released between 2017 and 2018. In the 21st century, Earth was being overpopulated by several kaiju, with Godzilla Earth being the most savage of them all. First appearing in 2030 on Odo Island, Godzilla laid waste to Earth and attacked humanity for 18 years, thwarting their constant efforts to dominate the kaiju, even with the help from their alien friends, earning him the title of King of Destruction. Earth's inhabitants were forced to abandon the planet to Godzilla in 2048 and flee to the planet Tau-E in another constellation. Godzilla Earth's origin story is notably different from the kaiju's other incarnations. It evolved from plant-based organisms rather than animal species and has survived for over 20,000 years. Godzilla Earth is said to be the end result of natural selection on Earth, making it the most powerful and the largest creature in Earth's history, with a height of 300 meters, weighing 100,000 metric tons, and with muscle fibers integrated with metal. For 20,000 years, Godzilla's DNA spread over Earth's environment, molding the ecosystem in accordance with its biology. Godzilla Earth evolved into an invincible being because the plant forms, which it originated from, incorporated traits of various other organisms through horizontal gene transfer along the way. Godzilla Earth appeared to be a much bulkier version of the MonsterVerse Godzilla, with a coarse, tree bark-like skin, with his muscles menacingly visible through the cracks. Godzilla Earth's tail had a spear-like tip with a ridged underside. His hostility towards humans is explained by the character Metphes, who says Godzilla is a divine avenger, sent to punish humans for their arrogance, and humanity shall never escape his wrath. He is a fierce protector of his homeland, who could anticipate the arrival of an asteroid and sense that Mechagodzilla was being built, in both cases taking sufficient measures before they could pose a threat to the planet or him. Godzilla Filas. This brings us to Godzilla Filas, who was the main antagonist of Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, the first film in the Reiwa-era anime trilogy. 22 years after Godzilla Earth chased humanity away from their home planet, the young Haruo Sakaki, living on the interstellar emigration ship Aratrum, devises a plan to defeat the monster in order to seek revenge for his dead parents. However, when the troops land on Earth, they discover that 20,000 years have passed on Earth, and the Godzilla they are are facing at the moment may be a different one. They were confused because Godzilla Filas looked strikingly similar to Godzilla Earth when it first emerged in 2030, but later it was theorized that it's impossible even for Godzilla to maintain the exact appearance for 20,000 years, given nature's rules of change, and that this 50-meter-tall monster is a subspecies of the original one. During the many years that Godzilla Earth ruled the planet after humans left, some of Godzilla Earth's cells broke off and spawned this new kaiju, which evolved for 20,000 years till the present day to become Godzilla Filas. The human troops were able to take down Godzilla Filas by identifying the only weakness he had. This Godzilla had the ability to create an energy shield to protect itself from attacks, which was generated by an organ located in its dorsal plates. If the organ is destroyed, Godzilla would be vulnerable to attacks until the organ regenerated itself. The defense troops did exactly that by planting EMP probes into Godzilla's body when the shield was down and the organ was destroyed, thus making him explode. Godzilla Ultima. Another Godzilla that came into being through a mind-boggling origin story is the Godzilla Ultima, an extra-dimensional kaiju from the 2021 anime series Godzilla Singular Point. In the series, Godzilla Ultima was introduced as a myth, a legendary monster who would raise its ugly head with the sea turned red and bring about an apocalyptic event dubbed as the Catastrophe. The creature was said to have destroyed a Japanese fishing village a long time ago in the past, whose memories faded away in the aftermath of World War II. A scientist who survived the fishing village attack also discovered Godzilla's bones, which emitted a strange signal in the form of a song. Years later, Godzilla made its first appearance as an aquatic creature, Godzilla Aquatilis, following a school of manda into Tokyo Bay. It emerged in Tokyo in a transitional stage as Godzilla Amphibia and wreaked havoc. When attacked, it cocooned itself in a crystalline shell and continued to evolve further, before emerging as Godzilla Terrestris. When the military launched a full offensive, it underwent the final transformation, becoming Godzilla Ultima, who set ablaze a large chunk of Tokyo with its atomic breath. The Godzilla Singular Point fanbook implied that this Godzilla emerged from another dimension or reality. Furthermore, the Godzilla Singular Point novelization suggested that Godzilla and other kaiju are the physical extensions of an extra-dimensional being that's omnipresent in all of space and time, and has a desire to toy with multiple universes. This Godzilla's most notable ability was to produce and manipulate the red dust archetype, thus making him the singular point of the substance that created his various versions over time. This Godzilla could control its own evolution and transform its surroundings, bending Earth, its flora and fauna, and even space-time continuum to its will. Godzilla Ultima's mighty atomic breath took the form of a condensed blue beam shooting out through rings of radiation, while in its amphibian form, it could breathe a flammable vapor with a temperature of -20 degrees Celsius. Naturally occurring sources. Dagon. The Monsterverse introduced us to another kaiju, Dagon, a prehistoric amphibious reptile who is often theorized to be an ancestor of Godzilla's kind. According to the 2019 graphic novel Godzilla Aftershock, in the 11th century BC, a community of Phoenicians made their way to the Japanese islands after a shipwreck, where they encountered a creature who they believed to be their sea god, named Dagon. The Phoenicians witnessed Dagon's battle with the parasitic Muto Prime, who almost killed Dagon before inserting 2 parasitic eggs inside Dagon's stomach. Left alive by the Muto Prime, Dagon retreated to the ocean to recover. Over a period of time, the Muto eggs fed off Dagon's nuclear energy from inside of him, draining him of strength and eventually killing him. Dagon's carcass became entombed in a gigantic cavern in the Philippines, which was discovered at the beginning of Monsterverse's first Godzilla movie. In the 2014 film Godzilla, Dagon's bones were inspected by monarch scientists Ishiro Serizawa and Vivian Graham, and a conversation between them suggested that the creature is much older than Godzilla and could be an ancestor of the King of the Monsters. In the film, Dagon remained an unidentified monster, labeled as Species 5146, Adam by Monarch. Later, in Godzilla Aftershock, Monarch's Dr. Emma Russell sees a Phoenician depiction of Dagon battling the Muto Prime, and theorizes that other Godzilla-like creatures have been made to go extinct by the Muto Primes in the past, and Dagon is one of them, and that the 2014 movie's Muto Prime was trying to do the same to Godzilla. Godzilla Aftershock writer Arvid Nelson said Dagon had pretty much the same powers as Godzilla. Titanis Gojira, Monsterverse Godzilla. The Monsterverse incarnation of Godzilla, introduced in the 2014 movie, came with as complicated an origin story as it is interesting. Classified as Titanis Gojira by Monarch, Godzilla is an evolved creature from a species of apex predator whose origin dates back to the Permian era, millions of years ago. This creature survived by feeding on the Earth's natural surface radiation, which, when decreased with time, Godzilla avoided several extinction events by relocating under Earth's water surface. Godzilla lived on by procuring radiation from the Earth's molten core while in hibernation. Godzilla was the alpha titan of his ecosystem, preventing the overpopulation of other kaiju while maintaining nature's balance. In ancient times, Godzilla's kind clashed with Kong's ancestors, presumably what forced Kong's ancestors to migrate from Hollow Earth to Skull Island. Godzilla was worshipped as a god by an ancient civilization, who built an underground city and decorated it with murals of Godzilla and other kaiju. The paintings depict Godzilla's symbiotic relationship with Mothra and their battle against the three-headed alien monster Ghidorah on ancient Earth. While the civilization perished in a cataclysmic event, Godzilla still resides in his primal home in the ruins of the civilization, which is submerged in the Hollow Earth, except for a geothermally active air pocket, where Godzilla replenishes himself by an intense stream of radiation. The 2014 Godzilla movie revealed that the 1954 hydrogen bombing at Castle Bravo, which everyone believed to be nuclear testing, was the government's attempt to kill Godzilla, who was attracted to the surface by the presence of nuclear power plants. Godzilla survived and went into hibernation until the parasitic Mutos attacked Earth, drawing the king of the monsters out and heralding the Monsterverse movies. Monarch eventually built an underwater outpost at Castle Bravo to monitor the Titanis Gojira in his natural habitat. When Kong stepped out of Skull Island in Godzilla vs. Kong, the king of the monsters felt his alpha status challenged and attacked his longtime enemy, but eventually joined forces with him to defeat the Mechagodzilla. The Titanis Gojira will soon face off against a new Monsterverse enemy, Scar King, in Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Speculative evolution. Shin Godzilla. The Shin Godzilla, who featured in the 2016 movie of the same name, got assigned a brand new origin story, and that too, a wacky one. This was a prehistoric underwater creature, which suddenly chanced upon barrels of nuclear waste at the bottom of the Tokyo Bay, sometime in the 1950s. Feeding on the radioactive waste, Godzilla gained the ability to mutate his own DNA so that he could adapt to its radioactive surroundings fast, thus enabling him to evolve at an enhanced rate. By the year 2016, Godzilla achieved a form which was able to crawl onto mainland Tokyo, causing a trail of destruction on the way. Once on land, he continued to evolve and develop limbs, standing upright at a height of 118 meters, making him the tallest Godzilla incarnation at that time. It is believed that the Shin Godzilla was originally a prehistoric reptile from the Paleozoic era, possibly with claws and fangs to be able to feed on the dumped barrels. In the movie, Shin Godzilla was the most evolved creature on the planet, containing 8 times the genetic information of humans. Shin Godzilla had a bunch of impressive powers, different from its other incarnations, which included shooting purple atomic blasts from its dorsal spikes and also from its tail, which curled up to sync with the atomic blast from its mouth. However, the Shin Godzilla's powerful atomic blasts exacted a toll on him, weakening him with every blast, which eventually enabled the defense forces to pump a blood coagulating agent into him through truck rains, freezing him into an immobile structure in the middle of Tokyo. Marvelous verdict. The Godzilla family has grown exponentially with wacky incarnations and menacing modifications in the 70 years since its inception, with each version being impressively different from the other. Godzilla has also sometimes unwittingly resulted in the creation of other kaiju like Biollante or Servum, or even the Space Godzilla, populating the kaiju universe but eventually managing to restore nature's balance every single time. Which ones are your favorite Godzilla versions? Tell us in the comments below. And if you liked our video, please give us a shout out and watch this space for more marvelous content.